Who is your neighbor? Have you ever thought about that? Like, I'm not talking about the person that lives next door to you, but who is your neighbor? This was the same question Jesus was asked in Luke chapter 10. And Jesus answered that question by telling a story. You're probably familiar with the story. It's called the Good Samaritan story. And it basically goes like this. There was a guy that was traveling, just minding his own business, a lot like we do, just going throughout his day. Then all of a sudden, these people that were up to no good come and jump him. They beat him up, they take all of his stuff and leave him there to die. And as he's laying in the ditch, no hope, he sees a priest come by. And he has to feel a little bit of hope because the priest represents God, right? And God is hope. And so the priest comes by, and before the priest even gets close to him, he crosses to the other side of the road and passes him by. Just shortly after, it says that his assistant comes by, the priest assistant comes by, and the priest assistant actually walks up to him, looks at him, and then passes him by. And then Jesus really puts a lot of tension in this story and says that there's a Samaritan. Now, they don't mean much to us today, but Samaritans in that day were not looked on highly. They were like half-breeds. They not only spiritually, but physically, they were not respected. And here comes this Samaritan that is coming along, and he sees the guy laying in the ditch, and he helps him. He don't only help him, picks him up, bandages his wounds, takes him to the inn, the hotel, and takes care of him for the night, gives him some food, whatever, all the good stuff. And the next morning he has to go on his way, the Samaritan, and he tells the innkeeper, hey, take care of this guy, and if you need any more money, I'll bring it back to you. And then Jesus asked the question, who was this man's neighbor? And the obvious answer is the Samaritan, because he helped the man, right? What is Jesus really telling us in this story? That's the question I was pondering, and just thought I'd share with you a couple of ideas I came up with. One of the things I believe Jesus is telling us in this story is that love knows no boundaries. That the kind of love that it takes to love our neighbors, that active kind of love, it cannot have boundaries. It cannot have racial boundaries. It can't have social economic boundaries. It can't have national boundaries. It cannot have boundaries around it. And Jesus, by using the Samaritan as the hero, he is telling us that love has no boundaries. And that's something that we all can be challenged with, is how many boundaries do we put on our love? Like, I will love you as long as you are this person or that person, or you align with my beliefs. And Jesus says, no. Love is active and it has no boundaries. I started thinking about the priest and the assistant, and for sure they loved God. They were representations of God to the people. They prayed, they served, they did church stuff, and they were busy about doing stuff for God. I started thinking about that and how they passed him by and didn't really help him. And maybe Jesus is telling us that your love for God is meaningless unless it's expressed to others. That sometimes that we can get so caught up in the duty that we miss our calling. And we need to really grab hold of that and say, no, our love knows no boundaries. And my love for God is expressed when I love other people. And maybe it really is as simple as this thought, that Jesus simply wants us to love the person in front of us. Just do what you can for the one right in front of you. Maybe your neighbor is the person that has a need right in front of you. And I get it. A lot of times we don't know what to do. There's so many problems. There's so many needs. Like, how can we make an impact in our world? What can we do? And I just would tell you, just love the one right in front of you. It don't have to be all that complicated. If you see a need, meet a need. If you can do something, do it. It is that simple, loving the person in front of you. And that's what Jesus is really telling us through this story. And as simple as that, love the person that is in need. In our day-to-day life, we can get so focused in our lives and what we're doing, and we rush around and we have very little margin in our schedule and our time, and so we don't see people, and so we miss the person that is hurting and is in need because we're busy. We miss the person sitting in the restaurant with us that is crying at the table, or the cashier that is obviously frustrated and going through a hard time. We miss the people at the gas pump and we're pumping our gas, just trying to get in and out really quick. We miss opportunities to love, to express God's love to other people. And I have this question I want to leave you with. What if we prayed and just asked God, who can we love for you today? Would you pray that? God, who can I love for you today? And in that, we become good neighbors. So go be a good neighbor.